Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the webinar on the value of advanced data modeling. This is David Daniels. I'll be your host and one of the speakers here today. I'm joined by Nick Einstein, VP of Research for the Relevancy Group, and John Paul Carey, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Zeta Interactive.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
We will be, I just realized this slide. Sorry. We will be taking questions through the Q&A tool, which is in the sidebar. So you can submit questions there at any point throughout the webinar, or you can post them on Twitter using hashtag ZetaCRM, and we will take those from there as well. So I want to turn it over to John Paul Carey from Zeta to talk a little bit about Zeta Interactive.
Thank you, everyone. Obviously, we're delighted to work with the Relevancy Group on the third white paper, the value of advanced data modeling, and we took an email spin on this. The slide that you see before you is the representation of who and what Zeta Interactive has become. You see several acquisitions that we've made over the years. And this is essentially a representation of an ESP capability, an MSP capability, a digital marketing hub capability, a DMP capability, as well as a robust database marketing capability. And we deliver, design, and build marketing data warehouses and marketing data marts. We firmly believe that there's tremendous convergence going on in the marketplace between the digital channels and the offline channels. And the problems that marketers are facing today often begin with enabling data and turning that data into information and that information into a marketing solution. So this is taking a look at what marketers are trying to accomplish. They tend to be trying to move from more of a product-centric marketing approach to more of a customer-centric, then to a relationship-centric approach, and respond to customers based on behaviors and preferences. And in order to pull all of that off, you have to have the appropriate strategies and tactics around creative execution, a robust strategy complement, robust technology, and also robust analytic capability. And what's interesting is in the email marketing world and digital marketing world, more so now than ever, the techniques of identification, segmentation, and prediction are extremely important. And so what we're trying to do is to bring this all together by delivering every customer a unified set of data coupled with a best-in-class publishing tool for whatever channel they prefer. But the solutions of tomorrow have to be cross-channel, cross-device, and have to be precise and relevant based on a customer that is increasingly becoming impatient to irrelevant communications. So we've had a fantastic year here, and there are the last part of my infomercial is that we were delighted that in the most recent Relevancy Ring email buyer's guide that we were the recipient of over 6 gold awards, including product innovation and strategic services and omni-channel marketing, and we were compared against the likes of Experian Marketing Services and Adobe and Epsilon and other great companies. So we're just really delighted to participate here and share and learn. And we work very closely with Nick Einstein and David to deliver something that we think is a fantastic product. So I do hope you take the time to read our white paper.
Great. Thanks, John. Just a brief intro about the Relevancy Group if you're not familiar with us. So we're a market research and advisory firm. We cover what we refer to as every channel marketing, so including email, mobile, all the digital channels, identity management, social marketing. We also publish a magazine that's free with registration, or you can download the apps on any of the devices. Apple, Android, or Amazon, the Marketer Quarterly, which is just filled with really rich interviews, day in the life of the CMO, so some great content there. As John just mentioned, there is a buyer's guide that we just published, the Relevancy Ring. Actually, Zeta has distribution rights to it, so there is a link that we will certainly pass along to anybody that's interested where you can download that report for free, and there's also an excerpt in the buyer's guide. Last thing I'll say before turning this over to Professor Nicholas Einstein is that you will get a copy of the research that Nick's going to walk you through and that we'll all talk about here today. But we'll send that out to you in an email following this webinar, probably later today or tomorrow. The research was based on a survey that we did in April of 2015 of 300 marketing executives. About 60% of that audience identified as being enterprise marketers. So those were people that were marketing around the world and had more than 1,000 employees. And there was good representation from a number of industries. It's predominantly retail, travel, financial services. It was sponsored by Data Interactive, but we're a neutral partner. We're not directly endorsing them. It's just that we're endorsing the hypothesis of the research, which was that marketers who invest in advanced data modeling are going to have a greater return than those that don't. And Nick, I'll turn it over to you and take us through it.
Thank you, David. I'll also add just a note about the research. Most of these data do come from that most recent survey, but we have some trend data here that also come from
December, winter.
Yeah, exactly, winter and even I think 2013 as well.
And the complexion of those surveys are all similar.
Exactly, exactly. So to kick us off, data from our most recent executive marketer survey reveal that email is the most trusted vehicle for driving revenue. When asked to rate the effectiveness of marketing channels, online as well as offline, respondents overwhelmingly agree that email was the single most effective channel for driving revenue. And we see here they're leading the pack at 91%. Display, social, and search are all posting respectable numbers there at 81, 76, and 72 respectively, and each finishing above the top offline channel, print direct or direct mail, which makes a solid showing here as well. And since it's proven to be the most effective channel, today marketers are relying on it just more heavily and relying on it to drive an increasingly growing percentage of overall revenue. So we've asked the same question over the past several years. What percentage of your overall revenue is attributed to email marketing initiatives? What we're seeing here is that in the fall of 2013, less than 13% of the respondents reported that email drove more than 25% of their overall revenue. But by the spring of 2015, that number had nearly doubled to 23%. And in the winter of 2015, it continued upward. And so it highlights that enterprise marketers that email is more effective and that enterprise marketers are now relying on it just more heavily than ever before.
Yeah.
Here we're looking at greater use of analytics to optimize communications over time, right?
Yeah, this is where we're asking people about their top priorities to improve the ROI of email.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So nudging out the top spot in the winter 2015 survey was improving response attribution across multiple channels. Both are valid, appropriate strategies, supporting better data-driven marketing. Real-time data and centralization of data are two other top priorities here that for good reason remain at the top of the list. Greater use of analytics to optimize communications is number one here.
You know what I think is really interesting here is that attribution is also code for identification.
Indeed.
So when you look at the predominant analytic techniques that marketers can apply to their business, the first is identification. The second is segmentation, and the last is prediction. And then there are different techniques within those categories. But identification, when we're talking about who is your best customer, why are they your best customer, are they profitable, what are their behaviors, what are their characteristics, and what channel are they coming from? Because now you see proliferation of big data, you see proliferation of channels, and now that's very difficult to sort out because now there's a twofold problem. Did I spend the right money on the right channel, and did I take the appropriate action? Did I find a source of new and incremental revenue when I executed that action?
Yep.
And then the third element here, the greater use of analytics in order to optimize communications. Obviously, it isn't as important as attribution, but it's almost as important. These are all 30 pointers, if you will.
Yep. No, exactly.
These are the biggies.
Yep.
And so it is interesting that this notion of the data scientist and supporting that with folks who understand analytics and analytic models. Now this is all really coming together in multiple ways.
Absolutely, and this is David Daniels. I'll just add to that we've been asking this survey question, or I have probably since 2000 or 2001, so for a very long time. And what's interesting, you can see over the last 3 years, is it's showing the maturation of the buyer. Right, we're getting the marketer is smarter, and again, to John's point, it's about identity and managing that identity. And becoming more predictive about what to do based on real-time data. But if we were to look back at this even just like 5 years ago, one of the top priorities would be like get my mail into the inbox, right? So deliverability is a perennial topic, it's still important, but it's now like 10 on the list, right? It's the marketers thinking more strategically and how they can utilize these tools. So I think it's an important time that we're seeing. I guess I'll just end with the point that if you're not thinking this way, at least a third of your competitors are. Right. So the market's going to naturally become more competitive because people are going to be doing the things that Nick is talking about.
No, sure. And bottom line, it's going back to John's previous point, is that customers are demanding it. Right. Yeah. They're just demanding cohesive experiences across channels where we're acknowledging previous behavior and addressing people and engaging them appropriately. So what is advanced data modeling and how valuable is it? As part of our standard research methodology at the Relevancy Group, we ask marketing executives about the strategies and tactics that they utilize, as well as the performance of their programs, and then we segment users by their tactics and quantify the impact of those tactics on their performance. For the ROI analysis we're looking at here, we compared the performance of marketers who leverage tactics such as predictive modeling, cross-channel lifecycle modeling, and multivariate testing versus those who did not. And the results indicate that marketers who leverage the more advanced data modeling tactics can generate nearly twice the return of those that leverage more basic tactics. And I don't know, David, if we want to get into more detail just about the specific model, we normalize send volumes across both groups here and just apply the metrics of their campaigns, their order value, their delivery metrics, their open and click rates,
conversion rate.
Yeah.
And we use the same average order value for each one. So Nick summarized it fairly well there with the. I think in this model, the mean mail size from the survey panel was about 13 million messages a month, and the average order value was maybe $130 if memory serves. But then we applied the specific metrics of these two separate control groups and what they reported to us. So that's how we come up with this arithmetic.
Yeah, which is obviously a meaningful lift in monthly revenue.
Yeah. Which is why so many people want to be doing it. For sure.
We're on the same page. So our data suggests that marketers today face the somewhat ironic challenge of having more customer data than we know really what to do with, or can effectively make actionable. And for many executives faced by these waves of big data, it's hard to know where to start. What we've tried to do here is come up with 7 kind of key areas where we believe are worthy of focus for marketers who want to begin taking programs to the next level through some more advanced data modeling. So 7 keys here. The first is leveraging email engagement data. And data accessibility, availability, they're challenges that many marketers face, and increasingly we're being asked to do more with fewer resources. Without reliable access to the data, however, it's difficult, if not impossible, to really build and optimize models that drive real growth for the business. Virtually all email marketers, however, have ready access to email performance data, right? It's generally at our fingertips, which is why we advocate starting here. You know, basic campaign data, open click recency, frequency. It can inform ongoing segmentation, targeting, cadence decisions, and ultimately really drive business impact. It's email engagement by time of day, optimizing to key metrics. It's now easier for marketers to utilize real-time data and performance data for precision targeting versus digging into the mountains of historical data that oftentimes we have trouble just accessing, getting our hands on. So email engagement data, good place to start. Probably not news to anyone on the call, but you know, unless you're in the distinct minority, most of the messages you're sending are probably opened on mobile devices, right? And so while it requires a shift in strategies and tactics, the fact represents a huge opportunity for us. We can now communicate with audiences regardless of location, right? And location's important because people react differently to messages based on location and based on context. You know, a coupon that's delivered to someone's phone as someone's walking into a store is likely going to be interacted with differently than one that's sent while someone's sitting in front of their computer at the office, for instance. As well, the types of actions that consumers can take on a watch or a phone or a tablet are different than those actions that users can take on a laptop or a desktop. So when combined intelligently, device type, format, location can inform segmentation, targeting, and content decisions that drive business outcomes, ultimately creating just better experiences for consumers as well.
Absolutely. And that the real-time data, which I think you'll talk more about, but I mean that's really what we're getting into with this mobile data, and really being able to you know, predict pretty accurately based on the past email engagement data, as well as, you know, using things like adaptive content to see where people are at and changing out those offers, perhaps if they're literally in store versus not. So there's a lot of great things you can do there.
No.
First, you sort of need to know who the person is, right?
Totally, you do indeed, which is becoming increasingly difficult in today's world of you know, channel and device proliferation. We all likely share the goal of addressing consumers across channels in cohesive ways with you know, precision marketing and relevant communications. And the predictive and propensity models that select recipients, channel, content, and provide intelligence that fuel these campaigns all ultimately hinge on being able to identify consumers across channels, right? If we can't identify them, we can't acknowledge their behavior and target them appropriately. Channel proliferation makes it more challenging, as we just hit on. Consumers are communicating with us through social, through web, through the phone, email, and increasingly are expecting cohesive experiences. You know, if sophisticated marketers leveraging both deterministic and probabilistic models to identify consumers and really treat them as people are going to be at a distinct advantage over those who continue to be stymied by identity.
Yeah, let me just chime in here, this is David. So Nick just threw out a couple terms there, deterministic and probabilistic identity management. So for those not familiar, deterministic is much more higher accuracy is what we're seeing. So there's sort of like with every sort of new technology, there's like which one's going to win, which method should I use, and both are useful, but deterministic is where you're using some level of PII data, so you're matching anonymous data, usually through a cookie. It could be through a device ID that you may have already tagged that person with, but then you're really tying that to a known person. The higher degree of accuracy we've seen from publishers, they'll usually pay a higher CPM or premium CPM to get at ad inventory where they know it's based on that. Where probabilistic is more of sort of the heuristics. I think it's David Daniels because he tends to play Crazy Birds or whatever it is on his phone, and he has these 7 apps downloaded, and we know that his footprint is this operating system, so it's a little bit fuzzier, but it is a step to at least creating a linkage to an individual. And one of the advantages of probabilistic is that it's much more open, so you don't necessarily have to put all your shells, if you will, in one vendor's camp. But we think over time it's probably going to be the deterministic model that's more accurate, that's probably going to win. And there's already vendors like Zeta and others that already have these identity management solutions. Mm-hmm. So so again, the identity is huge because before you can get to the predictive models with a high degree of accuracy, you sort of need to understand who is that person.
Indeed. Another good place to start is just past purchase behavior. So not all marketers have access to troves of past purchase data, but for those who do, it's a good place to start. Patterns obviously emerge when data scientists have their way with purchase data, and meaningful insights like next best offer or next best product or time to next order ultimately get surfaced. Many vendors pre-build models and have pre-built predictive models in their tools. I believe Zeta is one of them. But when deployed appropriately, such simple propensity models can fuel exponential growth and return on investment.
Nick, I would add to that there's a great opportunity there to even look at lead score, sent to optimization, or lifecycle segmentation components, or next door segmentation triggers, like someone's overdue, or they're endangered, or they're a quitter, or a one-timer. Those are all predictive analytic attributes, and models are crafted, can be crafted once you have a unified set of data. So that's sort of our mantra, is that we're focused on making sure that are we delivering the best response in the results to the execution, and I think that's the focus. So tying both of the analytic piece to the unified set, and then delivering the appropriate predictive and dimensional segmentation.
Yep. And I would just add to that, and not putting in a plug for Zeta specifically, but it gets to the services, right? And software and technology can do some of this, right? It's kind of all you need to automate it, but you need to work with a provider that has a strong strategic services group, smart people, PhDs on staff that can help build these types of models, right? The crazy professor in the closet. Well, maybe not crazy, but the smartest people in the room, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, no doubt. And I think for all these 7 points here, there's going to need to be some real expertise. Advanced analytics is it's advanced. It's advanced for a reason, right? But again, purchase behavior. Oftentimes, it's there. We have it, and modeling off of it is oftentimes ROI positive. Cross-channel attribution. We talked about it a lot at the relevancy group. We believe it's important it's one way to kind of help break down some of the organizational silos that exist within enterprise marketing organizations. But ultimately, last-click attribution models no longer really serve the needs of modern marketers who need more detailed information to make better decisions. Many of us who have been leveraging last-click models have likely been making poor media buying decisions based on that last-click data, just discounting the impact that other channels may have had on a sale. Oftentimes, we discount the impact that display has, because people are converting through search or something like that. But by understanding each customer touch point and specific impacts of each touch point, marketers are much better positioned to allocate resources and make ways that positively impact the business moving forward. Again, we believe at the Relevancy Group that organizations that focus on cross-channel attribution are better able to break down those silos that kind of traditional channel-centric approaches perpetuate, and therefore they're better able to meet and exceed the needs of customers who don't really care about silos within organizations.
Yeah, and we'll provide a real-world example. Won't tell you who the client was of ours, but it was a retailer, and Nick and I were there helping them look at optimizing their email program and looking at potential other even technology to do so. And there was a individual there that was responsible for the social marketing. And this particular retailer has very strong presence in that area. She didn't understand why she should come to the meeting about email or even contribute to it, and was very, because of the silos, they were doing different things. So once we sat down with her and explained that, hey, maybe you're not fully getting credit for what your social is doing, like maybe email's getting credit for that or vice versa. This is a way, and I said, how do you do your reporting today? We have Facebook out of this, and the Twitter over here, and the Instagram, and the Pinterest over here. And all of her own reporting was she had to look at 7 to 8 different applications to do it. Mm-hmm. So once she understood that part of the solution was this notion of attribution, she was like, oh, I get it now, and came to the meeting. So it is, that's a real-world example of sort of breaking down those stovepipes or silos within an organization.
Yep.
So, and then it was all peace and happiness after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So marketers' dialogue with customers and prospects extends beyond the point of purchase, right? And so for most marketers, the customer life cycle is an ongoing cycle, and determining where individuals, customers and prospects are at any given time and how they're progressing through various stages is critical to driving solid, relevant, precise communications. Segmentation, targeting, content, and cadence all hang on these key attributes that we assign based on these data. And marketers acknowledge that marketers who acknowledge the intricacies of these customer life cycles reap the rewards. We understand that customers are actually on their own journey, and that addressing their needs requires insights generated through more advanced data modeling. Increasingly difficult across channels, but increasingly, again, I think as John hit on, customers are demanding it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to happen, or else we risk losing them.
Well, I think about it sort of in the offline sense of, right, and I've used this example before, so if you've heard me say it, forgive me, but I think of it, and this also ties back to what you were saying earlier about purchasing behavior. If this was an offline world, and it was 1950, and I had a haberdashery, a shop, and John Paul Carey came in often and was a regular client of mine, John and I would have one type of conversation, and if Nick came in for the very first time, we'd have a very different type of conversation, and then those are identified as purchasing behavior, but also two different journeys that customers are on. So in a real world scenario, you'd have different dialogues with people. And so what we're suggesting here is that now you can automate all this stuff, right? And do it through digital marketing in a much more sophisticated manner than one size fits all.
What's interesting here is customers are often saying, I love them, and they don't even know me.
Right.
Yeah. And what happens is just when you think you know your customer, and then all of a sudden when the channels proliferate, it's like, okay, there is a next, you got to have a model about next best channel.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do the analytics for that, or you don't have a mechanism to do that, so this thing is, this whole notion of ECRM is becoming alive. It's becoming alive and well. So, and we as marketers are out there and we're cobbling solutions together. But it is like a living organism, and it's just growing. It's all connected.
Yep. For sure. And that life cycle is now longer, or longer, just based on the fact that in the past, post-purchase wasn't nearly as important as people are writing reviews and creating user-generated content and that sort of thing. So our seventh and final key here, or area of focus, low-hanging fruit maybe, is third-party data. And most marketers have easy access to at least some first-party data, email addresses, obviously email addresses, email response, past purchase history. And it makes sense for many marketers to begin building their models with those key first-party data sources. But many marketers obviously find that augmenting their first-party data with key data from third parties can really be transformative to their programs. It can provide serious depth to customer profiles. It can fuel lookalike models through kind of cohort analysis that drives new customer acquisition. And ultimately, most data partners make it relatively easy for us to augment our behavioral and profile data with social and demographic data, which is a really good place to start, I think.
Yeah, and this is interesting. This is sort of a world that had been in the traditional database marketing, conversation, if you will. That who would have thought that digital marketers would be concerned about change of address, or national change of address, or new mover files, or of course the ECOA piece. But it's like now the digital marketer may in fact need the data to say, welcome to the neighborhood. Your local pharmacy is down the street, and if you're not able to do that, you may lose that prescription business and subscription,
right?
Right, and the revenue and the loyalty that you once had, but someone found something a little bit more convenient.
Yep. And additionally, those data points become increasingly important building these probabilistic models too, right? Just identifying who people are across channels through their identity management models.
Well, yeah, and also their interests, right? So some of the third-party data, it could be the mover file and stuff, but they have a propensity to subscribe to magazines about cars or trucks or whatever, right? Versus they're into home improvement, right? So there's that type of third-party data that you can get. And at Zeta, you have, what is it, like 280 million households or customers?
We have 350 million.
350 million, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty staggering.
Yeah. And then
so
we
match against that, you're going to be able to find some insight.
But we offer a full-service bureau for lists and data services.
Right.
So we have that full complement out of our MBS business.
Yep, that's great. So I was going to thank you, Nick. That was very helpful. I'm just going to hit on a couple more points before we open it up for questions. So again, hashtag ZetaCRM, or submit questions to the Q&A tool here. In the research, we talk about, get into a little bit more detail here about what you need to do actually so to implement some of the ideas and strategies that Nick was talking about. So this is the precision marketing framework that we developed with Zeta Interactive. This is a collaborative, and it's really something that Zeta uses every day as a sort of process piece to how they move their own customers along on their sophistication journey. So in every piece that we're writing with Zeta, we sort of go back to this framework and see where does the research sort of fit into this model. So there are 5 layers here, and if you read some of the other research available on our site with registration or on the Zeta site, we sort of go back and talk about the integration layer, the organize, enrich, automate, and measure. So integrating, making sure that the data is actionable. Data doesn't and probably never will be all in one place, but that you have access to it. So using standard or open APIs to be able to access that data. The other thing is, how is the data organized, and is it ready to be loaded? Is it clean? Have you looked at things from an identity perspective, like householding, or even at an individual level, householding that data up to one person? So those are definitely the key elements to do a lot of the things that Nick talked about, is just getting the data ready and clean and organized. Certainly a lot that he talked about today was about enrichment, using data partners, and taking people from an unknown to known state, and converting people in the process. One of the things we didn't touch too much on, but is the real-time data. And I think as you look at the integration, organize, enrich, that whole sort of level, the ability to use real-time data is so much more prolific now than it ever has been. And we've always said the ability to predict future behavior is based on our ability to know what's gone on in the past, which past behavior is. So in the past, as marketers, we've looked at CRM data that might be 6, 12 months old. Now we're looking at data that might be 6, 12 hours old, or days. So our ability to predict the future behavior is so much better because the data is fresher and being able to move it in real time. So we really touched on a lot of this within the research. Certainly we talked a little bit just now about life cycle and automating that, but then the measurement, again, real key things. So this is that sort of cycle of precision marketing. And again, integrate, organize, enrich, automate, and measure. Again, send us some of your questions. We're going to take a look at those in just a moment here. But the research is going to be available for you to download, and we're also going to be following up with a research paper which goes into a bit greater detail than some of the things we talked about today, or same things, but you'll learn more even in reading the paper. So let's see what we have going on with questions. Here's the first one, Nick. It's of the 7 things you talked about, is there one that should be at a higher priority, or that I should implement first?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the leveraging email engagement data is something that likely many of you out there are currently doing, but can probably take to the next level yourselves without getting IT involved to layer in incremental data or build out new templates or things like that. So I think leveraging email engagement data is a good place to start. But as I think we hit on a little bit, multi-channel attribution is another area where we think not only is it, I mean, you can crawl, walk, run with it, take some baby steps, but we found that organizations who at least are open to moving beyond the last click model can really realize not only some near-term gains by being able to again make media decisions, smarter media decisions, but also can help break down some of those organizational barriers and help teams just kind of work better together and become more customer focused. So I think maybe those are two areas that are good places two first places to start maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good one. This one, maybe this was for John. It's a question about the third-party data, and it's, I guess, more of a question about how do they do it. So, I guess the question is, do I have to give you my list? I don't want to necessarily give away my data, or do you just add to it through a key, or how does that matching when you look at the third-party data occur?
Right.
So it's a question, really.
Well, we would work with you on a bespoke process, if you will, of trying to determine, what is the ultimate goal, right? So, we recommend that you want to complete the 360 view of the customer based on your meaningful marketing actions that you're going to be taking in your marketing plan. So typically, data services are not as expensive as one would think, in the sense that you only pay for incremental matches of data.
Yeah.
And so, these data services, can be performed at scale, relatively quick and easy. It's effective. It certainly is effective. But I think there's volumes of data that you can start with in your own house. The transactional data, the customer behavioral data, preference data, web analytics data, their spending history, when they purchase, how they purchase, and then you can, if you haven't even baked out your programs, then you can go down the path of product and lifecycle recommendations. But I love to, take a look at it holistically, if you will. Because if you know where someone's going,
Right.
If you know what point of arrival is, what are the best possible outcomes, then you can go find the data. The data is not the problem. There's plenty of data.
Yeah.
It's just turning that data into information and that information into a marketing solution and enabling that data. And what's interesting is there's so much data out there that marketers don't even household the email data that they have. For example, I would imagine the majority of people on the phone have more than one email address, might have more than one mobile address. And, which is the most responsive?
Right.
And there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, but it's more cost effective than you know.
Yep. Great. Here's another question. On the slide with channel effectiveness, social was third or fourth. Is that correct? Any thoughts about social, Nick?
Yeah. On the slide that I believe they're referring to,
the first data slide?
Totally.
Yep.
We asked the audience to rate the effectiveness of each channel in terms of driving revenue for the business. Email came out first, 91%. Display was second at 81%. And social was a strong third at 76%. And I guess one of my thoughts on that is that increasingly, I believe that we believe at the Relevancy Group that the efficacy of social advertising has been bolstered by some of this kind of people-based approach, where we can now target existing CRM lists through social channels. So Facebook audiences and now increasingly Google as well, where we can upload our lists, target
Our email
people,
lists.
our email lists,
Yeah.
indeed, and target consumers. Also do cohort analysis based on those
Look-alike type of thing.
Indeed. And so we believe that the efficacy of social marketing has been kind of bolstered by email and just this kind of integration of first-party data.
Because I would say, I would agree, and like probably 2 years ago, people liked social because it felt good, right? Ooh, I got some likes, but there was really like, what was the ROI of that reach, right? It was a lot of it was organically built, but now you can actually do this sort of programmatic audience and even reactivate your email file, find those people out on other sort of walled garden networks like Facebook,
Sure.
And try to reactivate them that way.
You know, yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if anyone's tried to reactivate. Now I was thinking on the fly here. I wonder if anyone's thought about doing that with unsubscribe lists. Take your unsubscribe lists and go upload those on Facebook.
I don't know about don't try that one at home. Yeah.
Here's the thing,
some trouble.
what I thought was so interesting about the research is that there were a lot of people who thought email was dead and buried a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I know as an old-time email marketer, I'm just so proud of the fact that now everyone has an iPhone or something that's similar, and it makes email just so much more accessible. And then why is email delivering?
Right.
Why is that? And marketers are trying to become more precise and relevant, and responsive design and smart rendering templates, as well as using tools like we have built-in email and asset for all of our clients who are on one of our newest platforms. It's just really neat that you can see how something renders in 70+ different clients and versions, so that you can be extremely, nimble and responsive, if you will, to the marketing action. So I would just recommend that marketers be attentive to the last inch, because the last inch can kill you.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting. This is sort of a whack-a-mole problem. The minute you secure the last inch, then you better go back and look at and see if you're enabling the right data.
Yeah.
Right. It's just all these features just will constantly be in flux, and then are you doing the appropriate work on identification or attribution? Because then you could be too dialed up on one thing and not enough on another.
For sure.
And so it's really, really interesting how this whole marketplace is evolving.
Yeah.
But we are passionate about precision and relevance, and we're not as big as a lot of these other players, and we want to deliver a meaningful solution. Arguably a niche player solution. We want to be a market leader, but it's got to be a solution that fulfills on functional business and technical requirements, that specifically does something, as opposed to is a one-size-fit-all approach, because things are dialing back, in terms of marketers want real-time marketing automation. They want precision, and they've got to have an instance that delivers that. And so I'm just so passionate about unified set of data, however you get it, and have a good publishing dashboard, and marry these things together, because it's here and now.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So we have a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to remind everybody you'll see there's a placeholder for the image of the new report on the slide. Apologies. We do have the existing research up on our website, or you can get it from Zeta Interactive as well. And again, you'll get because the new report is so new, it's hot off the presses, that I didn't have a cover image to put on the slide. So you're gonna get a copy of that with the research here. But Just any follow-up, let me just see if there are any other follow-up questions coming in. Here's one, actually. Somebody's raising their hand. Oh, that went away. Nick, any more on coming in on over the Twitter?
I don't see any coming in over Twitter, but if anyone does have any follow-ups, they can feel free to hit me at Other Einstein on Twitter,
Yep.
or directly at the Relevancy Group, and I'd be happy to follow up with answers.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you everybody for your time and great
Thank you.
discussion. It's been really helpful. We will have a recording of this webinar up, and you'll get a link to that, and so you'll have all the slides and materials that we talked about here today. But thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks again.